Hello, lovelies. Happy Wellness Wisdom Wednesday. I'm Donya Fahmy, and I'm the Alchemist in Chief at Sustainable Health Solutions Incorporated and Dropwise Essentials. I'm also known as a natural health expert and a lifestyle transformation facilitator. And I'm here with you live today to talk about the shocking truth about your candles. Now, I know that when you think about your health, candles is probably not the first thing that comes to your mind, not something that you would even be remotely concerned about. But I think you will be shocked and amazed at how many pollutants and carcinogens are being released into the air by your candles if you're burning the type of candles that are made with the wrong mix of materials and ingredients. So today, I'm going to share three main ways that toxic candles, are harming your health, and how you can choose healthier alternatives. And this is a timely topic because yesterday was actually National Asthma Day here in the United States, and this month is National Asthma and Allergy Awareness Month here in the US. And this is a topic that's near and dear to me because as someone who struggled with upper respiratory problems, including allergies and asthma for almost 2 decades, I feel compelled to share as much information as I can with people to help prevent them from getting these kinds of conditions or help them find ways to overcome them, and certainly not aggravate them, which can happen when you're burning the wrong kind of candles. So, by the way, please share this post or tag someone you know that burns a lot of candles or has allergies, suffers from allergies and asthma, or both, okay? And did you know that candles are used in 7 out of 10 households in the United States? It's a lot of candle burning. And the research has shown that the average consumer burns candles like 1 to 3 times a week, and half of those that do burn do 1 to 2 candles at a time. So that is really a whole lot of candle burning going on. And that's why it's really important to know what you're buying when you buy candles, if they're toxic, if they're not, and how to avoid the toxic ones and buy the healthier alternatives. So let's start with the first thing you need to look at, which is the type of wax that your candle is made from. Now, probably anywhere from 90 to 95% of the candles on the market today are made with paraffin wax. And that's mainly because paraffin wax is really cheap and accessible. But the problem with paraffin wax is that it's a petroleum byproduct. So it's a byproduct of the petroleum refining process, and it's derived from coal and shale and all the elements that are used to make petroleum. And so when you light a candle that's made from paraffin wax, you're immediately being exposed to toxic fumes that contain harmful chemicals like benzene and toluene. And in addition to that, those ingredients, once they're released into the air, they create something called a petrol-carbon soot, soot being S-O-O-T, soot. And that phenomenon is also sometimes called black deposition soot, or second, black soot deposition, right? Yeah. And so think of it this way. When you burn a candle that's made from paraffin wax, you're releasing harmful carcinogens and pollutants that are similar to the ones that your car releases when it burns fuel. Like, yuck, right? I mean, who wants to put that into their environment and then actually inhale it? So one of the things I just want to point out to you is if you make this one simple shift of moving from toxic burning candles to non-toxic, you're going to radically improve the quality of your indoor air that you breathe, and you're going to protect yourself from these harmful substances, right? And so you'll lower your risk for upper respiratory problems. Now, the problem with the soot is that once it's released in the air, you inhale it, the particles are so tiny they can actually lodge themselves really deep into the lower respiratory tract. And that will cause respiratory problems or aggravate conditions like asthma or lung issues or even heart conditions. So it's really important to avoid the soot. It can also, in addition to damaging your lungs, it can damage your home, right? Interior of your home. It can blacken the walls, it can blacken the ceilings and the furniture. It can contaminate the ventilation and the ductwork in your home, and it's extremely toxic and harmful to your electrical appliances, mainly things like computers and stereo equipment. So all the way around, if you're someone that lights a candle, say, every day, for example, or burns one pretty frequently, there are other long-term health consequences besides lung damage and upper respiratory issues. it can also damage your brain, central nervous system, and increase your risk for cancer. So give me a shout out in the comments if you're just hearing this information for the first time, if you've never heard this before. Cool. Hi, Danik. Nice to see you. So the type of candle, again, the type of wax your candle made from is one of the key determinants of whether it's going to be toxic for you to use or not. And so you want to stay away from paraffin. And the best way to do that is to buy or burn candles that are 100% vegetable wax or beeswax. So beeswax, both beeswax and soy wax. Soy is the most common vegetable wax that's used to create vegetable wax candles. Both beeswax and soy are more expensive. Beeswax is a whole lot more expensive. This is a beeswax taper. But the cool thing about beeswax is it's all natural. It almost never comes scented because it has its own sort of natural honey-like smell that it releases when you, a warm kind of smell that it releases when you burn it. But beeswax is very solid. So the thing you need to be careful about is if you like to use pillar-style candles, which is like this pillar, again, solid, or a votive. This is very common too, also kind of small, hard knocks candle. So soy wax by itself is quite soft and creamy. It doesn't have a lot of heft to it. So in order to use soy wax in a pillar style candle, it has to be blended with a harder wax, like a beeswax or, unfortunately, like a paraffin. So one of the warning signs, one of the things you need to pay attention to if you're like that type of candle and you want to have those around is make sure that if it says it's a soy pillar, that it's a soy candle, check the label to see what other kinds of waxes are blended in with it. And if there's no information on the label, I would just steer clear from that altogether, because it's very likely that a lot of people are doing a blend, a hybrid. And the pollutants and carcinogens that get released by burning paraffin, while to a much lesser extent coming from a blended wax candle, you're still being exposed to that. So I would just, stay away from that altogether. Soy candles now, most of them come in a container format, in an aluminum container, non-reactive aluminum, and then the sort of fancier ones come in glass, nice pretty glass containers. The cool thing about soy is that it's totally biodegradable and water soluble, which makes it great if you have a little accident, you knock the candle over and spill the wax, or you spill it on your clothes, then it's really easy to clean it up. You can wash it with soap and water, you can throw your clothes in the laundry, and it'll come out pretty easily, which is kind of cool. The other cool thing about soy candles is the wax doesn't burn very hot, so it pools, and it's kind of cool. So if you come in contact with it, you won't burn yourself, right? So the other cool thing about that is if you have a soy candle that's in a container, and you have one of these little electrical warming plates, like the kind you use to warm up keep your cup of coffee, your mug of coffee warm, or your tea, you just put that on there, heat it up. It'll still melt the wax, and it'll release the scent. So soy candles are a great option, but again, be wary of if they're pure, 100% pure, or if they've been blended with something else, right? So the next thing you need to pay attention to, who here, by the way, uses soy candles already and knows what I'm talking about? Post in the comments below and let me know. I'd be curious. So the second thing you need to look at, the next most important thing you need to pay attention to, is what is your candle wick made from, okay? So candle wicks used to be made primarily with lead, right? I know it's shocking, isn't it? So lead or zinc or some combination of lead and zinc or other metals. And the reason being is that the metal helps keep the wick stiff, so it continues to stand up straight like that, and it keeps it from sort of tipping over like that and extinguishing itself when the wax around it has started to melt and soften, and it can no longer support the wick. So that's the main reason for using metal in the wicks. But check this out. This is why this is so important. It's the research has shown that a lead core wick, when it's burned, releases 5 times the amount of lead considered hazardous for small children, and it exceeds the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency's pollution standards for outdoor air. So that is pretty shocking. Who besides me finds that shocking? If you find that shocking, give me a wow. So the good news about the lead wicks is that most of them have now been banned. Although as recently as 15 years ago, more than 40% of the candles on the market still had leaded wicks in them. So if you have a lot of old candles around the house, like I do, I mostly use candles I mostly keep a lot of candles around to use when there's a power outage, right? So I have some light. And so some of my candles, God, I don't know, easily more than 10 years old, because, you know, luckily we don't get a whole ton of power outages that frequently. So if you have an older candle, there's a good likelihood that it might have lead in the wick. And the other thing is that even though it's been banned here in the United States, the Consumer Protection Agency voted to ban it back in 2003. But there's not a whole lot of information out there about how that ban actually has been implemented. You know, whether that was a regulation, whether it's being enforced, how it's being enforced. So you just really never know, is I guess what it comes down to. And so with such a potential hazard lurking on the horizon, it's always best to be cautious. I say, to be safe than sorry. So the best way now to avoid that hazard is to buy candles that are made with coreless cotton wicks, okay? Or wicks that are made from paper or hemp, although cotton's probably really the best option. And how do you know, for example, if your wick has lead in it? Well, it's real easy. What you do is you take a plain piece of paper, white piece of paper, and you take your wick. It has to be a clean wick, meaning it hasn't been burned yet, right? And you just take the tip of it and rub it against the paper and see if it leaves a gray mark or not. Right, you see there. So this one I think is clean. So that's one way you can tell before you actually use a candle if it has lead in the wicks. If you buy one and you do this little test, or if you're somehow able to sneak a test in the store and prevent yourself from buying it in the first place, that would be the ideal scenario. But if you buy a candle and you bring it home and you do this, and you see that it clearly has like a gray mark, you know, a smudge, then take the candle back, return it, and you can explain to the retailer or the place that you bought it why you did that, so that they will make a point of not carrying candles like that anymore. Okay, so let's see here. Yeah, so that's how you can know. But the other way to know, obviously, is to check the label on the candle and just see what it says about the wick. So, for example, on our candles, we have 100% soy wax, clean burning cotton wick. And you want to look for information like that on the label of the candle you buy. Now, last but not least is candles scented with synthetic fragrance and chemical dyes. Now, in a previous session, I talked about the hidden dangers in scented products because they more than likely contain nefarious ingredients called phthalates, P-H-T-H-A-L-A-T-E-S, phthalates. And phthalates are industrial plasticizers, meaning they're used in industry to soften plastics. And they're also known as endocrine disrupting chemicals, EDCs. And that means they muck around with our hormones and cause a lot of problem. They've been linked in a lot of research studies to serious health problems, including fertility issues and breast cancer, among others. So I can't say enough, obviously, being an aromatherapist, about why you shouldn't be using synthetically scented candles or synthetically scented products. But the other thing to pay attention to also is that synthetically scented candles typically also are colored with synthetic dyes. And both of these ingredients can trigger allergy and asthma and even migraines, right? So if you burn candles mainly for the purpose of creating like ambiance in your home or your environment in your space, then the easiest way to avoid these hazards is just buy uncolored and unscented candles, right? Like plain white candles like that. I don't even know if you could see that. And, you know, if you do burn candles for scent, then it's really critical that you make sure that the candles you buy are made with 100% pure essential oils. No mincing around, no mix of oils and fragrance, because it's really like the phthalates, the primary source of phthalates and soot is candles, scented candles, right? And so if you're breathing soot and you're also breathing in the phthalates, you can think about potential things that might be doing to you in your body. Like I said, if it can soften plastics, what could it do? Well, it's inside your body, whether it's in your bloodstream because you absorbed it through your skin, or it's in your lungs because you inhaled it. So soy candles are obviously the best option again for that, because soy candles are long lasting and they burn like almost 50% longer than traditional paraffin wax candles, and they have a superior set throw. So you'll get that impact, especially with the essential oils. Now, I mean, the other thing you can do, and I think is probably the wisest if you're really concerned about safeguarding your health, is light unscented candles for your ambiance, and then use an essential oil diffuser to scent the room if you want scent. It's going to be a lot more efficient and effective to do it that way, and a lot safer, right? So at a minimum, you can consider doing that. Now, give me a shout out if you're finding this information useful. Now, and let me know if you would like to know how to have more access, ongoing access to information like this and about natural healing as well as support. Then type the word candle in the comments below so that I know you're interested, and then I'll reach out to you shortly with details on how you can be among the first people to get all the juicy details about my upcoming membership program, monthly membership program, where we're going to be sharing way more and going more deeper into topics like this as they affect your health and the things that you may not be aware of that you really need to be aware of if you want to be healthy and strong. So yeah, so type the word candle there, and I'll reach out to you and let you know, and also how you can get early bird special charter member pricing if you're interested. All right, great. So let's quickly recap what we covered here. So the three types of toxins in candles are of course, the type of wax that it's made from. We talked about that. And the type of lead, I'm sorry, not the lead, but the wicks that are made that shouldn't have lead in them. And then if they're scented, how they're scented. These are the three areas you have to look at. So with respect to the wax, avoid the paraffin wax, which unfortunately is the most common type of wax for candles on the market. However, there are a lot of far safer alternatives with soy and beeswax. And if you're getting a solid pillar type candle like this, hard when that, and it's a soy candle, make sure it's blended with beeswax and not with paraffin. Okay, because even blended candles that contain paraffin can expose you to harmful carcinogens like the ones that your car releases into the atmosphere when it burns gasoline. So that was number one, was the type of wax. Number two was the type of wick. And so you always want to go for coreless cotton, hemp, or paper. And if you're not sure, like I've shared, you can take the tip of an unburned wick and rub it against a clean sheet of paper and see if it leaves a trail behind, like a gray mark. If it does, that's a smoking gun, and you know you've got a wick with lead in it. Now, wicks might have zinc. Zinc is much more common now because it's less harmful than lead, but we don't know what the long-term effects of breathing in soot that's released from zinc are. So stay away from the metal core wicks. And then last but not least, we talked about synthetic fragrance and dyes in your candle, okay? So you want to avoid synthetic fragrance because they're endocrine disruptors. They can really mess around with your hormones and your reproductive health and your lungs as well. And they can trigger migraines. So there's a whole lot of reasons not to go that route. And so what you want to do is make sure you're using candles that are made with 100% pure essential oils. And you can consider the option of doing what I mentioned earlier. So you could get an aromatherapy candle made with essential oils, a soy one, in a container, and just stick it on the warmer and burn, plug that in and warm that up, melt the candle and release the scent, and you don't have to worry about like toxins being released in the air from the wicks. So that's one thing you can do. The other thing you can do is just buy unscented candles that you light for ambiance and use an essential oil diffuser for fragrancing the room, which is a lot healthier and a lot safer. Now keep in mind that if you don't burn candles frequently, like you only burn them every now and then, or you have them on hand like me for emergency situations, when the power goes out, then it's unlikely you're going to have to worry about long-term health effects from, being exposed to some of these harmful toxins. But if you burn candles frequently, then you should be seriously thinking about switching over to these healthier alternatives that I mentioned. And even if you have them that you're using infrequently, once you use up the ones you have, when you buy new ones, make sure you get the healthier kind, just as a precaution, right? So I hope you found this information useful and that you'll be able to put it to use right away. And let me know in the comments below if you learned something new, what you learned that was valuable or interesting to you. And don't forget, type the word candle in the comments if you'd like to learn how to have access to early bird details on my membership program, as well as special pricing and incentives. And until the next time, be well. Thanks, y'all. Bye.